Hi, everyone, and welcome to the AI Interconnect podcast, where we dive into the minds of leaders building smarter, more resilient businesses with AI, automation, and intentional systems. I'm your host, Lauren, and today I'm joined by someone who's not just talking about sustainability, but engineering it into the core of our built environment. And Derek Hansen is the co founder of Mynt Systems, a company transforming commercial building into clean energy assets. Based in California, they are bridging the gap between energy efficiency, renewable, and ROI in a way that feel refreshing, practical. And Derek, welcome.
Thank you so much,
Happy to
Lauren.
be
Pleasure to be here.
fun-
Appreciate the time. Yeah.
Fantastic. Welcome to the show. That's uh, that's gonna be a great conversation.
Looking forward to it.
I enjoy seeing you, and let's jump right in. Um, Tell me about your path. What got you into the world of clean energy and building retrofits?
Yep. There was, it's interesting. At the time, I didn't quite uh, understand where the universe was pulling me. Looking back, it's very clear. The path looks very clear as I look back. I think Steve Jobs said, it's hard to connect the dots looking forward, but it's certainly easy to connect the dots as you look back. I grew up around a company that my father had founded, mother and father had founded when I was very young. I grew up around the business. I worked within the company on summer breaks in between school, and eventually after studying architecture and working for some architects, and then going into the construction space. My father talked me into coming back to the family business and joining him, and eventually with the idea that someday I may be able to lead the company. Of course, my dad was old school and started me at the very bottom of the company, and it took me, 15 years or so of hard work to work my way up to a leadership role. Um, the company was focused specifically on aftermarket technologies for glazing for the glass for commercial buildings. Essentially, coatings, ceramic coatings, things like that reduce thermal heat gain to the building, reducing the need for both cooling and heating. And so it was a very good product for both inhabitant comfort levels, aesthetics, but also for energy efficiency. Through that, my work within the commercial space, working with designers, architects, builders, and then, of course, owner operators of these facilities, businesses of all kinds. I started getting pulled into larger, kind of more national conversations with some of the what they were called. I guess they're still called ESCOs, Energy Services Companies, ESCO, and they were hiring me as a consultant to consult specifically on the building envelope and the glazing systems and how to upgrade those to meet their standards and what it was they were trying to achieve with their holistic approach to energy efficiency and building science. ESCOs come in and look at every opportunity to reduce energy consumption, and then sometimes even to add clean energy generation to those sites, to those buildings. And through my consulting for companies like Chevron Energy and Trains, ESCO Division, and some of these large organizations, I got to see this kind of comprehensive, holistic approach to building energy use and efficiency. Within my work outside of that consulting work I was doing at the national scale, I was talking to a lot of facilities managers, building owners, companies that are running high energy use operations, and they would always ask me, "Do you know somebody who does?" Because I'd be there working for on the glazing for them, and they'd say, "Do you know somebody in the lighting space? Do you know somebody that does HVAC optimization? Do you know?" And I'd say, "Man, I would walk away from these conversations thinking, boy, if I just had a way to bring all these smart folks together, consultants together in a group, I could create a new version of that ESCO model for the mid-market private space." ESCOs tend to be way up here at the corporate campuses, the Facebooks of the world and so on, or government campuses and government agencies. And they don't do any work for a number of reasons in that mid-market private sector. which is the largest sector of the built environment, is that mid-market commercial industrial space. And so, long story short, I tried to build this business model within the walls of the company my family had been running for, at the time, almost 40 years, and it just wasn't going to be a good fit. And so I eventually uh, made some moves to kind of restructure things, and I stepped away as CEO and resigned and went to go write a business plan and look to raise some capital to start what is now Mynt Systems. Um, it turned out that at the time I eventually worked on brokering a sale with my family, the sale of the family business. Parents got to retire. Everybody was happy. It was great. And so we put our full focus into Mynt Systems. So the idea when we started Mynt Systems was to bring that holistic approach to building science, energy efficiency, and clean energy generation to that mid-market space. The idea being that for many decades, we've been screaming from the rooftops that we got to do something, around our energy use. We've got to save the trees, save the whales, all the ecological benefit to being smart with our energy. But nobody was quite packaging that concept in a way at which investors were compelled. They felt like it was something they'd like to do, but it was a cost, not necessarily a direct bottom line benefit. And so our thesis when we launched the company was to package this kind of comprehensive energy efficiency, renewable energy program into an investment strategy for commercial real estate investors. So they could reinvest into their own real estate portfolio with this strategy, creating a higher yield or increased property value, while at the same time delivering cheaper, clean energy to their tenants, getting potentially keeping the tenant longer term, or a more competitive building in the leasing environment. And of course, being able to check the box that we now have a sustainable piece of real estate. So that's what we got started doing. We started very small, raised a little bit of seed capital from a couple of very wise investors. Now looking back, they were very wise, but they were taking a big risk on a couple folks with an idea. And long story short, we bootstrapped into fast growth to where we are today, 11 years later, much bigger and broader reaching than I had ever imagined.
That's wonderful. It's unbelievable. Then definitely started on the right path very, very, very young, following your parents' idea, and get it to where you are right now. And what makes your retrofit model different from uh, what traditional contractor or consultant offer?
Well, it's a great question. Again, I tend to be a subscriber. There's really two different, if you boil it all down, there's two distinct different business models that are almost always one or the other is happening. One being a product development model, typically reserved for tech or manufacturing, where you believe you understand what the market needs. You get a bunch of smart people together and go create a product, refine that product, test that product, and then at one point launch it into the market, and it becomes a marketing program at that point. How many people can we get to buy our product? This is what we believe is what the market needs. The other business model, and the one that I subscribe to, is the customer development model, which is essentially going and taking feedback from the market and being able to iterate and evolve the business model based on where the market is at and the current conditions of the marketplace, as well as what the customer base is actually telling you that they need. And so I would say that, to answer your question, we felt like we were hearing a lot of the time this question: who do we start with? Do we start with the engineers? Do we start with the consultants? Do we go to the contractor? Who do we talk to first if we want to do something to improve the energy consumption on this building? We don't know where to start. And so what we felt was slightly different than what was out there was that we were going to bring to bear a model that was end to end, both consulting on the front end, both of investment grade pro formas, economic models, the design and engineering of the systems, and then ultimately the construction itself, both from a self-performed aspect as well as subcontracting. And then ongoing operations and maintenance, or what we would call asset management in these investment kind of strategy packages. So we felt at the time that it wasn't a unique concept. Again, the ESCOs had been doing that model, and they originally were born from the oil and gas industry, but evolved into the energy efficiency space. But again, they were not able to bring that model specifically to the private space, mid-market space, and so we thought it was unique at the time. The other thing that we find is unique is that we are not looking at any technology in isolation. We're looking at the compounding in our design phase. We're looking at the compounding benefit of a number of different things. At this point in the company's life cycle, we're almost entirely focused on the outside of the building, which is solar generation, natural gas generators, battery storage, EV charging, things like that. But it is the interplay of these technologies that can be optimized for both the highest yield on investment as well as the highest energy savings possible. And lastly, I think that is the last thing I would say that makes us very unique. It's not so unique anymore. But at 11 years ago, we weren't hearing it very often, which is essentially we have something up on the wall of the offices that says if it doesn't make dollars, it doesn't make sense. And so our bullseye in the middle of the target is always, how do we get the highest yield on investment? Again, we're trying to convince the investor class to invest in sustainability, not because they believe in saving the environment, most of them do, but because it has a very strong yield on investment. And so that's also what we use as our North Star, our guiding light. We feel that more good work will be done in the world if those with the capital are seeing good returns by doing it. And so that was another part of our thesis.
Makes a lot of sense. I love it. One thing that stands out is your ability, therefore, to bundle um, engineering, construction, as you say, financing, performance tracking. That's a lot of to manage.
It
And
is.
how, how do you keep that machine running smoothly across projects?
Lauren, I'll tell you, I sometimes make the joke that I was either, I think it could be argued that I was really, really smart with this idea at the time, or I was really, really dumb, because it's been an incredible amount of work. What we did, the short answer and how we did it is I put culture first, meaning business culture, starting with how we operate, what we believe in, what our mission is as a company, and then ultimately it leads to things like the location of the headquarters. We're here in the Silicon Valley area, but just between Silicon Valley and the ocean is a set of mountains that, it's kind of a pain in the butt to make that trip across. So here by the beach, most people were making the commute over to Silicon Valley to do the best work, find the best companies and do their best work. My idea was that there's got to be a certain percentage of people like myself that just don't want to make the trip to Silicon Valley, but still want to do meaningful, game-changing work. And that if we keep our headquarters here in Santa Cruz, California, that we would attract the best and brightest that did not want to that culturally wanted to stay a part of this small kind of smaller beach community, and be by the ocean and all the wonderful things that Santa Cruz offers. And so that played out very well. The other thing we did is we spent 10 years actually reinvesting every dollar of potential profit back into the company to hire ahead of growth, and not just hire, but hire the best and brightest that we could find that matched the company's culture. So that, I would say, is one of our secret superpowers, was the idea that by developing and maintaining a fantastic company culture, we could attract people that maybe would take a role that was less than they could earn working in San Francisco. But because of where we're located and because of this incredible company culture, they were willing to come on board for a little bit less. Eventually, they're all making now what they, market rate, but they were willing to come on a little below that helped kind of, we were essentially cash poor. We were, again, reinvesting profits into the company. We didn't raise a tremendous amount of money to start this company, just a little bit. Gave us a few months worth of runway to get into revenue. And so anyway, long story short, I think by attracting the best and brightest, top of class people in both project development, engineering, design, finance, and construction management, we have been able to maintain this kind of vertically integrated, like you said, sophisticated machine, but it's just by getting great people. And the only way to get great people is to have something that matters, to really be speaking to their heart and what matters to them. Most great people want to do great work and have a good time doing it, and not be in some big corporate machine where they're just another number. So I think that recipe played out very well for us.
That's beautiful. The leader is talking. Yeah, it looks like the happy company. That's beautiful. Operational insights, a team culture, a great team structure, I may say,
Yep.
uh, and coordination tools. I'm sure it's well organized. All this and
Well,
in
there's
a
a
little
reason that
paradise.
there's a reason that systems is in the name, and it was something, actually. Most people don't know this story, but it was something I've had a business coach that I worked with in my previous company, and and helped us along the way as we started this, and continues to work with us. And he was insistent that we keep systems in our corporate name as a reminder to ourselves of how important systems will be if we were to scale the company, because it is such a sophisticated model. It is no joke. One of them, I did not know what I was signing up for when I started this thing. It is incredibly difficult. But the systems are both market facing systems, marketing systems, but also the internal operational systems are so important with a company with this many moving parts. And so, yes, we're known as Mynt, but Mynt Systems is the corporate name, and that systems is very important to us. And I think it is part of how we have been able to do so much with so few for the last decade.
That's great. Yeah, everything makes a lot of sense, and the culture, the name, everything is has to go together. And let's talk about the uh, your mindset or the industry shift. How has
Mm.
the mindset of property owners or municipalities shifted over the last few years? And are people more open to energy investment now, or are you still educating the market basically?
Yes, this is a really great question, and I've watched a very very distinct shift. I think it's of course subjective, right? Depending on, there are folks that have been in this industry, in this space for 30 years, and they've probably seen it go through lots of ups and downs and changes. In the last 11 years, I noticed probably about 5 years ago, we went from this kind of grassroots or maybe intrepid investor that's just believed in doing the right thing, and oh wow, if there was a way to make a yield on my investment by doing the right thing, I'm all in. And it was kind of filtering and finding those types of real estate owners. Then I would say, and I'm guessing at about 5 years ago, I think that we started seeing Wall Street talking about it a little bit more. It started to become a part of, the we had ESG become, a very prominent part of investors' requirements, capital requirements, and of course, the E in ESG is environmental, and so it was a good way for them to place some capital and essentially check a box in that ESG, kind of a requirement or intention. The other thing is, I think globally and certainly nationally, the conversation has become just a top-down conversation. What are we doing to become more efficient? Um, I believe that there is absolutely a direct benefit ecologically to energy efficiency and clean energy. I also believe that there's a direct benefit to the socioeconomic strata, and I would say social equity, right? It's a decentralization of one of our core elements uh, of power and control, which is energy. And by putting the energy, so to speak, back into the hands of individuals, I think we're changing the dynamics a little bit. And so yeah, we have seen a gradual. There was probably a very big turn, I would guess, 5-6 years ago, where we just started seeing more and more people coming to us saying, hey, we really want to look into what it is you guys do, as opposed to us having to purely educate the market on what's possible. Our business model has now become more ubiquitous. There are more and more companies doing it the way we do it. And so I think, yes, it's becoming a bit more, well, a lot more of a market pull versus us being pushing into the market.
Yeah, the market more mature and client more educated, and
Yeah, when you see
ESG.
firms like BlackRock, slotting billions towards sustainable real estate and sustainability in general, that opens everybody's eyes. If they're doing it, there must be something there. And so, yeah, I think it was just a matter of time. There's a lot of factors that come into play in making it work, right? High cost of energy is one of them. Cost of energy continues to go up almost everywhere. But here in California, where we do most of our work, it's on a very steep climb, year over year. So that makes it even more compelling.
Yeah, many people are concerned about carbon reduction and goals that we need to get very very much a reduction of carbon's emission. Um, okay, then are there are there any type of clients like REITs, school district, or retail centers where you have seen real momentum lately?
Yes. Schools, it's funny here in California. And again, I have a fairly myopic viewpoint in that the majority of our work, we started the company with a focus on the Bay Area, and then over time expanded throughout California. Currently, our project basis is throughout the entire state. Maybe in the next year or so, you might start seeing us on the East Coast. But uh, my viewpoint is based in California. What I can tell you is California schools were there was a program that was a state program that was laid out that was specifically earmarking capital for energy efficiency upgrades for schools. And so we have done a fair amount of work for some of the smaller school districts in our area. Those were early days. We have never worked with REITs. However, we do a tremendous amount of work with retail shopping center owners, directly and indirectly. Indirectly by serving energy developers that are going out and striking deals with retail shopping center owners where they are essentially leasing the roof space for the solar project, maybe some of the parking area. That real estate owner, that shopping center owner, is now getting a new income stream, a new stream of rent for space that they weren't previously utilizing. That clean energy developer is then brokering the energy, cheaper clean energy, across the number of different users of the space. And it might be a Subway sandwich shop, it might be a Foot Locker, it might be these different type of stores and users, and they are hiring us to do the engineering construction of those systems. And so we do a ton of work like that across the state for a number of great organizations. And then we have specifically targeted from our own development arm work with industrial manufacturers, producers. So semiconductor producers, food manufacturing, food production, where it is a very bespoke system where it takes a lot of time to both understand the operations and the use of energy, contemplate the best recipe or the best system design for them to have the greatest, again, net benefit in savings and also return on investment in just kind of a pure economic pro forma standpoint. So we have targeted industrial users primarily for our own development work, as opposed to being the EPC, engineering, procurement, construction, for other developers. And so, yeah, it's kind of a mix of all the above. Some of my favorite projects have been high energy use production facilities, large scale manufacturing, or prototyping, where we've been able to essentially retrofit them to a zero electric situation. So first with a series of energy efficiency measures to reduce their consumption, and then offsetting the rest of their consumption with on-site generation, solar, battery storage, things like that. So I love that because I love the idea that we're supporting American-made products, clean manufacturing. We did a very large scale commercial bakery, same thing, helped them design their entire new facility and then brought in our Z&E, zero net, energy, zero net electric kind of program. And it not only makes that product a sustainably uh, made product, it's helping that business um, be more profitable and have the longevity they deserve by reducing their operational cost. And so, in manufacturing or production, the more you produce, the more revenue you get, right? But the more you produce, the more energy you use. And so what we found in studying these companies when we're working with them is they're actually working, the law of diminishing returns is working against them, in that the more they produce, in theory, the more profitable they should become. But because they're reaching higher and higher tiers of energy consumption, they're actually not as profitable as they thought they would be or could be or should be until we bring our program to bear. And so it's heartwarming for me to see these companies that are kind of the bedrock of our communities, that are producing things that we use from technology to food and beyond, textiles and everything else, see them actually be able to thrive in this ever increasing energy cost environment.
That's great. That's very, very interesting, um, and great momentum. Bravo. Let's talk about the challenges and what's been hard about scaling a business like Mint, and whether it's sales cycle or maybe policy hurdles, talent, tech. What keep you up at night, or all of the above?
Uh, I guess it's all the above for sure. Anybody that's built a company from the ground up knows that people are the best and the hardest thing about any business, both internally, both talent as well as customers. It's a challenging. It's a people business. All business is people, and so that, I think, we basically imprinted into the DNA of the company that we are human centric. We're very much focused on both uh, the work life balance and the well being, and more than anything, people need to be inspired and feel like they're accomplishing something. And so, making sure that that's occurring, and again, it goes back to company culture, has been just the fundamental, most important thing for me in growing a company. Um, and then I think being human centric in really I would say, being empathetic, putting ourselves in the shoes of our customer. What matters most to them? What are they trying to achieve? What business model are they running? How do we fit within that? Not prescriptive and just saying, here's what we do, take it or leave it, but more so, how do we adapt and iterate and evolve to meet the needs of our clients? And so that's played out very well. It does take a lot of time. Uh, we again spent a decade working very hard before we hit the true inflection point of scale that we're in now, because we really were constantly testing new ideas and working with our client base on how to do it right and how to do it best. Secondly, as you mentioned, the evolution of technology is it's moving quicker and quicker every year. I think we've probably surpassed Moore's law a long time ago. In the evolution of technology, so there's new products and technology every day, and so we have two or three people on staff that's almost all they do is looking at and vetting new technologies and how they can be applied to what we do. And so that's an investment we made early on. Again, not the most profitable investment back in the day, but now it's playing out to be very, very good in that we understand the new technologies as they're being rolled out and can apply them quickly, whereas others are still standing scratching their heads. So it's been a competitive advantage. And then lastly, the big thing is just policy. Whether it's new policy coming out from the Public Utilities Commission, or state requirements or federal requirements, different administrations, tax advantages, tax incentives, all those things are always changing. And so one thing that we've always prided ourselves on is the constant pressure check of our projects and our strategies. Would they stand alone and still be a smart project or a smart investment if those incentives somehow went away? there was a lot of concern with the new administration here in America having the potential to slash a lot of these incentives that were fortifying the clean energy space. And what we wanted to always know is, would a real estate owner, would an investor still see this as a good investment, even if we didn't have any of those incentives? And we have always believed that what we do, that's true. Now, would things slow down? Yes, if all those incentives were taken away. But we would still be viable. What we do would still be meaningful, and so that's an important thing for us. And yes, we have a full-time grant writer and research person here. That's all they do is try to predict where things are headed, looking for new opportunities for incentives, things like that. And so it's difficult. It is really, they call it, it's, I hate the term because it's goofy, but I've heard it tossed around, the solar coaster instead of roller coaster, because it's just this up and down, ever changing environment. That's it's difficult for sure, but I think it also makes it so that only the very best survive. You see a lot of companies come and go because they're so heavily uh, um, based in the opportunities that are within the current landscape, and they're not necessarily prepared for changes. And therefore, I think those companies that sustain are the ones that can be lighter in the feet and do things in a way at which the incentives make it and the policies make it even better, but it would still be fine without them. So again, that's a little bit theoretical, but we do tend to look through that lens. So tons of difficulty there, but I think what it is again, goes back to company culture. And if you've got people that take ownership in their work and want to do more good work, they're always trying to adapt to what the new changes might be, both politically and regulatory, and then therefore economically. So it's definitely not been easy. There's a lot of easier ways to make a buck, I'll tell you that. But we are passionate about the positive effect that we're having in the world.
Now, very nice, very long sell cycle could be a
Yes.
challenge as well
Yeah. Very
in
much
your
so.
industry. Yeah.
Yes.
Um, okay, and I mean a lot of complexity in maneuvering. Then, how do you navigate all this complexity while you're still pushing innovation forward?
Well, it's funny that you bring up the long sales cycle, because it's both a curse and a blessing at the same time. Um, so the long sales cycle typically means that it's going to take somewhere between 6 months and a year to get a project, ready for construction, approved and permitted and ready to go. And then the project itself can take anywhere from 6 months to a year to deliver and to get your final payment. That's a tough,
Yeah.
that's just a tough revenue cycle, right? What we did is we started very small projects that were both quicker to close and start and quicker to complete, and then gradually increased our project size over time, and raising our minimum kind of project size over time. The blessing of it, though, as that long sales cycle is there, is that it gives us time. So what we are selling, now, based on the current market, uh, conditions, we've got a year or two, before we have to actually actively change the way we're doing things based on policy change, based on changes in the market. So on one hand, that long sales cycle is very tough when you're a young, undercapitalized company, and then it can actually become, I think, a benefit in that we have almost 2 years worth of revenue on already uh, kind of booked right now. And so that gives us the time to be looking at where are things headed next, and how do we adapt and evolve our market strategy to the changes that are occurring. So it does buy us some time.
Yes. No, no, very well described. Let's zoom out, or let's zoom it into. Let's speak about technology. We talked about technology a little bit, but are there areas like building automation, AI-driven energy optimization, predictive maintenance, where you see opportunity for a deeper tech integration?
Yeah, I mean, I am one of the least uh, informed folks in our company around what the actual nuts and bolts of the technology. What I can tell you is, uh, as we talk about AI, it's on everybody's mind, and in almost every conversation these days. Um, it is being utilized in a very, very interesting way, from my standpoint, primarily around energy storage, where that stored energy. So, for those that may not understand how this works, we're generating energy on site to be utilized against what would have normally been used from the grid. The battery, coupled with that solar generation or whatever that energy generation system might be, is storing that energy when it's at its lowest cost, and then deploying it against the highest cost, depending on rate schedules and time of use and things like that. So, um, those batteries now are become. It's the battery itself is not the. I mean, it's very advanced technology, the chemistry of the battery, but it's the software that's managing that battery that's becoming more and more intelligent on how to second by second deploy that energy for a number of a very broad array of different circumstances, especially when you get into manufacturing as a user of that energy. And so I think the AI, that learning, that ongoing self learning, and then predictive um, the software is becoming very interesting. And I believe that where we're headed eventually is most of our cities will have a network of batteries that are both serving the site where they're located for energy savings, but then also working ahead of the meter and working in grid services capacity, where the grid itself can utilize that stored energy in different ways to harden the grid, as opposed to having it. We hear a lot, at least here in California, of the brownouts, where just too much power is being used on the grid, and the grid has to turn down. Or in fire season here in the west coast of the United States, sometimes the grid's being shut down just to prevent potential fires in high wind and hot situations. And so
That's
that
right.
stored energy as a nodal network being managed by AI in an interconnected way, I think is a future that we'll see soon. And certainly, we're utilizing AI to build models here internally, as we're looking at more and more of these type of complex challenges. The artificial intelligence is very, very helpful in modeling things very quickly. And then there's the everyday uses that we are all beginning to enjoy, with ChatGTP helping us with documents and things like that, legal review. Um, but yeah, I also, the other side of AI is the massive energy consumption required to build these
Yeah,
data centers that are running AI.
yeah,
And so a part of our business model is shifting, not just to offset the current energy consumption, but also to provide new energy on sites where the grid can't supply enough power to those facilities, where they are running at a load that I've never even contemplated before, that we're seeing pretty commonly now. So we're looking at different ways of producing new energy on site, almost in supplement to the grid. As opposed to just offsetting grid consumption, literally generating more power than the grid can provide. And so some of these technologies are things like linear generators, where they're using natural gas in a clean, efficient way to generate new power. And eventually hydrogen will be, I think, a more ubiquitous and even cleaner way of generating more power on site. But yeah, AI is literally changing everything from both directions in our space.
then I mean you could have or maybe have a data center as a client, definitely.
Data centers are interesting. I mean, I'll throw this out there. Certainly, it's a possibility. However, their energy use is so so big per foot. They both a few things happen on data centers. Both that they max out the available footprint of the parcel with building space to house those servers. So there's not a lot of room to add any new equipment. And if you covered the roof of that building with solar, as an example, it's a drop in the bucket. It's barely even scratching the itch.
No, no.
And so most data centers are building agreements with large scale solar farms somewhere out in the desert and open land somewhere else. But that said, they do pose a very interesting problem for the grid and for energy in general. And we're working hard on how to figure some of that out. What can be done on site to alleviate some of those energy needs. But yeah, it's an interesting one. It'll be interesting to see where it goes. We're also seeing the bidirectional potential of electric vehicles, right? Both charging, but then in times of need, those are essentially mobile batteries, all plugged in at the same time, can then be providing that stored energy to the site that they're charging as well. And so that'll be an interesting evolution to see how that all plays out.
That's right. Um, yeah, that's so interesting. That's so unbelievable. All this conversation. Thank you. Let's fast forward to 2026 and beyond. Uh, what do you think the clean energy or retrofit space will look like by then? More electrification, tighter compliance, a shift on how project finance are valued.
Yeah, yeah, I think you're right on all those fronts. I don't know that we're seeing a massive change in the way that these buildings or the built environment is being approached from an energy efficiency and clean energy standpoint, as much as we're seeing an opening of the floodgates from a capital standpoint. Whereas traditional and institutional capital used to be a little bit weary of financing or investing in these types of projects, we're now seeing a lot of commercial real estate owners saying, hey, wait a second, why aren't we embedding this into our entire strategy of both acquisition and disposition of our real estate within our portfolio? And so with that comes a little bit more, I think, open-mindedness from big capital. And so I think where we're going to see things really speed up is that more and more of what used to be a fairly skeptical, group from this kind of high-level capital standpoint, they're becoming more and more open and seeing the benefits of investing or supplying capital for this type of work. And so as that occurs, I think we're going to see projects get streamlined. It's always been one of the challenges is how to finance and how to structure that finance in these type of deals. Typically, real estate owners would rather use their capital to do what they do best, which is go buy more real estate, and or sometimes reinvest in that real estate. And so, if there's a source of capital that can be be the funding mechanism for clean energy projects in a more streamlined way that's accretive to the value of the real estate, I think we're going to see these projects get a lot more happening at once and a lot quicker. And then, of course, I think everybody's minds are being opened at the consumer level based on the big push for electric vehicles. People are starting to understand, wait a second, I can take control of a lot more than I used to if I have solar on my house and a small power wall or battery in my house, and then I'm charging my car at home. I'm essentially driving, on free fuel, so to speak. Well, what's happened is more and more people are starting to look into that energy ecosystem. How does this all work? What does the grid really do? How is energy monetized and utilized and so on? And so as more and more people are just kind of wrapping their arms around what once was a fairly dark arts of understanding how energy really works, is now becoming more commonplace conversation. So I think that's also changing things. Yeah.
Are you Are you doing B2C? I mean, are you doing private houses?
No
No.
residential work for us. The only real B2C that you could say we do is the development and
Yeah, a whole project.
EV charging hubs, right? To where,
Oh, yeah.
it is a commercial endeavor, but again, the revenue stream is coming from those the private market who's charging their cars. And so we are out developing and owning and maintaining charging hubs throughout California, where yes, the consumer is utilizing our hardware and
Yeah,
our
makes
charging.
sense.
So yeah.
A- And for Mint, what's your boldest ambition over the next 2 years?
It's a good question. And I should have a very succinct answer for you, but it's
Uh,
almost an ever changing
stop,
thing.
stop.
What I can tell you that it always was to become a company that could survive and last. Again, when you start a company, it's a little bit like having children, right? You just hope they turn out good, and you do everything you can to nurture them and grow them, and you just hope that they do well when they leave the house someday. And so for me, my biggest ambition was to not necessarily create the biggest company in the world in this space, but to create one of the most cutting edge or forward leaning, forward thinking companies out there, essentially being the model for which other companies that were maybe more well capitalized could follow and improve on and utilize this kind of our model is very positive sum. It's not somebody, in order for somebody to win, somebody else has to lose. It's that everybody wins. Everybody involved, including the community that we're in, is winning based on our work. And so we always wanted to be the spark that kind of ignited the fire of change, as opposed to necessarily being the biggest force in change out there. That said, by being cutting edge and being very smart and being very dynamic, we have now become known as one of the best in what we do. And so therefore we're getting the growth is hard to even keep up with as a company. And so our goal was to be known as one of the best companies in California doing what we do. I think we can check that box now. And now we're having conversations about a national footprint. We have partners and ongoing clients that are asking us to move across the country into other areas where they are seeing a need. And so I think a big ambition for us would be to continue to grow and evolve to where we have multiple offices throughout the country. And I think that ultimate goal would be to truly decentralize energy, to be the guys that help figure out how to truly decentralize energy in a way at which we are creating social equity and net benefit to everyone, including the environment. We're in process of doing that. But for us, the idea that becomes, we call it the new energy future, as kind of a tongue in cheek. It's just the new energy future that's coming. We want to be those that, candidly, Lauren, I want my kids to someday be able to point to Mint Systems and say, "Look what our parents did. Like, look what they did when they started this. They were part of changing the world." And that legacy matters a lot to me. A life worth living is one at which you can look back at the end of your life and say, "I did something that mattered." And so for me, that's my big goal: is did we matter and did we make a difference? The money is a byproduct of doing great work and great things. So at the end of the day, our goal is to continue growing. We essentially doubled revenue last year. Next year looks like we'll double again, and the numbers are getting bigger and bigger. And so again, that is just a measuring stick for as testimony to the fact that we're doing the right thing and we're doing it well. And that at the end of the day, I wanted our company when we started it to be both a vehicle of transformation in the market, but also a vehicle for personal transformation for those people that choose to work here and that join the team. And so that means that we have a lot of internal promotion and growth. We've got people that started out as very entry level that are now running large chunks of the company. We really love the idea of creating a company that can be modeled into the future as one where people can have families and live a wonderful life in a great area and yet still meet the needs of a very, very fast growing company and a very quickly evolving marketplace. and still be dynamic contributors to that, but have a good life at the same time. And so all of that is really kind of rolled up into this idea for the future for us, which is massive change both for the people inside and outside the walls.
Yeah, beautiful words. Bravo. That's very nice. Words of a leader, leaderships, and an example going forward for a generation to come, and great culture within the company. That's definitely beautiful things. And Derek, it's been a pleasure digging into this with you. And you're not just electrifying buildings, but electrifying mindsets, I say.
That's right.
Uh,
Amen. Well said. Thank you.
oh,
Thank you. I
okay,
appreciate you
good,
saying
good.
that. That's exactly what we stand for. We have a little tagline here that says "Be electric," and it's got the
Yeah,
double entendre: be electric in
exactly.
business, but be electric as a human being.
Fantastic. And before we wrap, anything you'd like to leave listener with? I mean, final thoughts or a
One
message to
quick
younger
note.
founders?
One quick note, near and dear to my heart, is somebody that dropped out of my first semester of college to go into the trades. Um, I wanted to kind of put this out there that for any young people that might be listening, for decades we've been talking about needing to go get some kind of a fancy degree in order to be able to make any kind of difference in the marketplace or to make any real income. And the trades were left behind for those that just couldn't cut it in school, and guys like me that just couldn't spend another hour sitting in a classroom. And now there's a shift. There's a shortage of skilled labor. Electricians are essentially making as much as the engineers are that spent all those years in college. Those electricians that went to work and developed that skill are now in very high demand. And so I would say maybe to the younger generation out there, or even those that are running businesses and hiring folks, uh, we need to continue to let young people know it's okay to go work with your hands. And eventually you can end up in a leadership position when your body's worn out and tired. You can be in management and of some sort, or an engineer. One of our top engineers was once an electrician. But there is certainly a shortage of skilled labor. And I think the world is going to need more of it as this electrification is happening in mass. We need those folks that know how to actually do that work. And so I just want to put a plug in for the labor unions. We are close to becoming a member of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, the IBW. I think it's a great way to have a great career and get. In the beginning, you learn while you earn, as opposed to college where you're essentially spending while you learn. So just putting a
Yeah,
plug in out there for the new blue collar, which is the green collar.
yeah, very well said. Great words, and definitely message passed. And if anybody wants to get in touch with you or learn more about your company, where do they get? Where do they go?
Go to our website, mintsystems.com, mintsystems.com. We have a general inbox. If you want to get in touch with me, reach out there, send a message, and it'll get to me. Or certainly reach out on LinkedIn, Derek Hansen on LinkedIn. Look forward to
Fantastic.
talking to anybody that's interested, and we're always hiring.
That was a fantastic conversation, Derek. Thank you so much for your time and your insights and words of leadership. Thank you.
Thanks, Laurent. It was very much a pleasure. Thank you so much.
And that's it for today's episode of the AI Interconnect podcast. And if you enjoyed it, share it with someone who is building the future, or better yet, someone who should be. And until next time, stay curious, stay creative, and keep building. Thank you, Derek.